This is Saturday Morning with George and Phil. I'm Lenny, pinch hitting for Phil this morning. This show is designed to help you become the best version of yourself. Whether you found yourself like me, out of shape, or struggling in a dead-end job, or in transitions with a job, we're your hosts, George Murray and Lenny Newman, pinch hitting for Phil, to help you move from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. We're glad you could meet us this morning. Encourage questions in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many as time allows.
Hey, good morning, Lenny. We've been so grateful each and every of our viewers. We're approaching right now 12 months on air, and we're really looking forward to helping people just get better. We love the feedback. Ask if you would share the program if you find it beneficial, and help others, enable them to pay it forward as well. Again, Lenny, good morning, and thank you for pitch hitting.
Oh, absolutely. You know, George, it's been kind of fun over the last 10, 11 months. This show's really taken a life of its own, focusing both on businesses and professionals, helping people get better and achieve forward.
Absolutely. And this morning we're streaming from YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn Live. We do this episode to chat about a topic that's relevant. And before we get started, I want to basically identify Thrivent as our sponsor. They've been helping us help folks in their financial aspects. And you guys, all this half of the month, they're looking at helping folks help from the contact creditors perspective, you know, especially during the holiday times. It's probably a pinch hit, especially if you're a career transition. They're helping you with your credit card, your mortgage, those types of things, be able to defer, as well as maybe have a pleasant holiday season if you're in career transition. So do me a favor, if you are interested, make sure that you go on the actual scan site right there, and you can set up a free 1-hour consultation with the friends at Thrivent along with Skip.
Yeah, George, and a heartfelt thanks to Thrivent and Skip Nelson for what you guys do. It's greatly appreciated. George, moving on to the subject at hand, I got to ask, have you ever been so fearful that you just couldn't move or act on something? As I like to say, kind of frozen in position.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to turn around and take a break because we're not live on LinkedIn for some reason. So I'm not sure what's going on.
No worries.
So I'm trying to figure this out here. You know, technology, you just have to love it.
It's okay. Everybody's become quite patient with it because we have to deal with it every day.
I know that we're on Facebook and we're on YouTube, but for some reason, LinkedIn will not let me work here. Well, you know what? We're going to just go forward, and I'll turn around and save it. I'm hoping that we're on LinkedIn. It says right now we are, so hopefully we fixed it. Cool. But yeah, again, we just want to turn around and say that thanks the folks at Thrivent. You know, we're totally out of sync here, but let's jump right into the show, right?
You bet.
So one of the things that we all talk about, especially in career transition, is fear, right? And so, you know, whether you're contemplating into your next job, or you're looking at, you know, starting your own business, or, you know, just proverbially jumping out of the corporate airplane without a parachute. I want to welcome Patrick Sweeney to the show. Patrick is an Olympic rower, an entrepreneur, and also labeled the fear guru. Patrick, welcome.
George, it's great to be here. Hey, Lenny, how are you?
Hey, Patrick, great to see you this morning, and I love that snowy background from the other side of the globe. So it's great to welcome you this morning, and if you don't mind, can you just spend a couple minutes and give us a little bit about, your background and why folks call you the fear guru?
Well, the fear guru part is based on 6 years of neuroscience research, and that's what led to, as you guys know, hit number 5 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list when it came out in March 2020. And the long story short is I grew up first generation Irish immigrant just outside of Boston, and got bullied a lot growing up, had a really abusive grandfather and uncle that, we basically lived with because my dad was working 3 jobs and my mom was, working as a bank teller. And so grew up really full of fear and full of shame and and sort of that typical Boston Irish Catholic upbringing where you never talk about it, you never show your fear. And, always thought that I'd earn respect if I got really good at something. So I went for sports and first started all the traditional, eventually in college found rowing and was really good at it. Won a national championship at the University of New Hampshire and decided when I got out of school, I wanted to see how far I could go and got a tryout with the Olympic Training Center in Boston. And
wow, that's fantastic, Patrick. In my own background, I found that, the fear of the unknown is probably the one thing that I would share in terms of my personal fears. Making a job move is one. I'm just curious, in your experience, how do you suggest people overcome, a fear of the unknown, as I like to refer to it? I think he may have frozen up, George. See if he can comes back in.
There we go. I'm back.
Yep, there you are. You're back.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's right.
And so so I thought the rowing and the athletics would get me respect and self-respect, really, and it did on the water, and I became fearless racing. But the rest of my life, I was still terrified. For example, my biggest fear, and what used to just absolutely terrorize me and fill me with fear was flying. And so very few Americans have rowed the World Cup in the single scull. And when I found out, when my coach called to tell me that I'd be racing in the World Cup, it should have been one of the best days of my life. But instead it was terrifying. I had a panic attack because it meant I had to get on a plane and go to Europe. And so, so my whole life was like that. And then I thought if I made a whole bunch of money, I'd get respect and confidence and courage. And so I went back to one of the top 10 business schools and set a goal of making 40 by 40. All I cared about was making $40 million by the time I was 40 years old, and screw everything else. I was going to do whatever it took to make the money. And it led to a really toxic lifestyle because I didn't know it at the time, but I had this constant stream of cortisol, the stress hormone, just pumping through my body because I was always afraid. I was afraid, my investors would go away. I was afraid, my first job, my boss wasn't going to be happy. I was afraid I'd lose a client. I was afraid I'd lose an employee. I was terrified of everything. And, you can imagine what that's like inside someone who's trying to cover up and not admit the fear and always put this armor on. Like I was, big tough guy. I was driving an H1 Hummer and, I'm running this startup at the time wearing a $10,000 suit like I was Gordon Gekko on Wall Street or something. And it was all trying to cover up the fear and the anxiety I felt inside. And the only way I could deal with that strange feeling was drinking. So I was drinking probably 7 or 8 beers every day, going out to networking events at night, up until 1 o'clock in the morning. And then I'd get home, I'd get 4 hours of teeth grinding sleep and I'd wake up at 5 or 5:30 to go work out and sweat it out, right? That whole Irish Catholic guilt thing, right? If you're gonna play, you got to pay. So that lifestyle led unwittingly to something that could happen to any one of your listeners. And I've seen it happen time and time again. I went to the gym one morning, started doing, lat pull downs and just got this terrible pain in my arm. And I thought, well, that's weird. I must have pulled a muscle or something. And next day it was even worse, big red and swollen like a Christmas stocking. And I thought, oh man, that does not look good. I should go to the doctor. But you know what? I'm terrified of doctors. I'm not going to any doctor. So I said, no, not doing that. And then by the third day, I couldn't even move. I could barely wake up. Went to the doctor in Reston, Virginia. And he said, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you've got no immune system. You have 0 white blood cells. We're going to do a bunch of tests. They couldn't figure it out. And they said, well, we got to get you to the best hospital in the world, Johns Hopkins. So 24 hours later, I was in Hopkins, and my 1-year-old daughter was at her grandmother's house. My wife was sitting at the end of the bed, and Dr. McDevitt walks in and he said, we're not sure what it is. We've got the best doctors in the world. We're going to do everything we can, but you really should put your affairs in order and say your goodbyes. And my wife was 6 months pregnant. And so that was the point when all I could feel like it immediately hit me that, this is it. And I have wasted an incredible life. I had all these opportunities, and because I was too afraid to get on a plane and go to the family reunion in Donegal, Ireland, I was too afraid to do spring break in San Diego. I was too afraid to do all these things. I just missed all these great opportunities that life had presented me, and now it was over. And here it is. I was going to die anyways. And so all I felt was that tremendous sense of regret. And not to give away the ending, but I lived. And
I would
spoiler alert.
Hey, Patrick, one of the things, I love the book, by the way, and I strongly suggest anybody, it doesn't even matter if you're in career transition, whatever your part of your life, this is definitely a book that everybody needs to read. To me, I just literally could not put the book down. So much great information, so much great data to back up the direction. But for me, and I think a lot of viewers out there, how do you overcome the fear of jumping out of the proverbial corporate America plane without a parachute? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think that George, that a lot of people are facing that, especially now. And the truth of the matter is, I go back to something the military uses a lot called the OODA loop, right? Which is that decision loop of observe, orient, decide, and act. And that OODA loop, I actually add a caveat to it. I call it the Buddha loop, which is a BOODA, and that B stands for belief. And so if you have that belief in yourself as you go out, and you also have that belief that the universe or the world is a very friendly place, then the most important thing you can do, and this is a great way to help you compartmentalize that fear, the most important thing you can do is start going through that loop as quickly as you can. Because as soon as you take action, you get feedback. So if you believe that the world's a friendly place, you're going to have all these doors open up to you. You have belief in your skills. You're good at what you do. You've picked the right career. You're doing something that you're passionate and you care about. You believe that. You observe what's going on around you. You orient yourself based on your education, where you live geographically, what industry you're in. Then you decide to make a move, and you decide, I'm going to contact this guy, I'm going to put this on my resume, I'm going to do that. And then you act and do it. Then you go back and do it again, because you're going to get feedback from the first person you talk to, the second person you talk to. You go through that loop again. And while you're busy and focused entirely on doing that loop, if you're just saying, look, I'm getting through this career loop as fast as I can, you won't have time to let that fear into part of your brain called the working memory. So the fear response that we have, George, it's based on a 2 million year old piece of software running on our fear center called the amygdala. The fear center is just there to be an early warning system for danger. We can turn it into an early warning system for opportunity, right? Because usually when we feel out of our comfort zone, that means there's an opportunity for us to grow, for us to do something new. So if we change our mindset and we reprogram this fear center, which I talk a lot about in the book, we can go from this mindset of threat to opportunity. And that's the real key when you're going through career transition, is to make sure that your mindset is like, I'm not under threat. I'm not worrying about losing my house. I'm not having trouble with, neighbors or finances with my, my loved one or my family, this is an opportunity. And that's how I'm going to look at it.
Oh, great. Thank you. I definitely need the push.
Hey, Patrick, just a couple follow-ups. One, what I heard you say is activity, kind of wash, rinse, repeat, just keep doing what you're doing and kind of push that fear, if you will, aside. I'm curious, what in all of your interactions and questions with the book, what have you found people are most afraid of? I mean, what is it that they're fearing?
The biggest thing that they're fearing, Lenny, is the unknown. So our brain is a prediction engine. And this is why so many people got really messed up with COVID, with everything that was going on during the pandemic. Our brain is constantly trying to predict the outcome of every moment. That's how we're wired. So the key thing you can do is get used to uncertainty. If you get comfortable with the uncomfortable, if you get certain that the world is going to be uncertain, then what you'll do is you'll go through life and you'll start to enjoy these challenges and this uncertainty. And you'll say, I never thought that was going to turn out this way. Instead of, holy shit, I never thought that was going to turn out this way.
Right.
It's entirely being able to understand that. And so much of this fear and this neuroscience, I interviewed 32 of the world's top neuroscientists. The book took 6 years to write. And the reason it's a bestseller is it's because of all their research, not because of my writing or anything. I was just, lucky enough to put it all together so people can benefit from it. The key really is that they've got the ability to reprogram their brain after understanding how it works. So the first part is understanding how it works. The second part is reprogram it to be uncomfortable, to be comfortable with that uncertainty.
Got it. Very helpful. Thank you, Patrick.
Sure.
Hey, Patrick, in chapter 3, and I'm proving that I read the book, stating fear is fuel, always staying curious. Can you elaborate for those either contemplating a bad job or been fired, talk about their fear of failure and rejection? Because one of the things that I talk to a lot of folks is that they're beyond that proverbial 50 and they're always guessing, hey, do I still have it in me? There's their age discrimination, those types of things. How do you get somebody over that type of fear and making sure that, they're, staying curious?
Well, so there's 2 points there, George, I want to bring out. In the BASE methodology, which is the practice you can go through every day. I always tell everyone to have a morning routine. I like to incorporate that BASE methodology that I talk about in the book, which is breathing, assessing the situation, smile and shift. And then the E is to eliminate shortcuts, because our brain wants to make shortcuts. And usually what they are is judgments. So if we judge, we're wired to judge if someone's a friend or a foe. Do we want to mate with them or do we want to kill them? And that's how our primitive brain is wired. And so we make these snap judgments immediately about people. Instead, we've got to replace judgment with curiosity. And so the people who tend to fall back on making those judgments tend to have a victim mindset. And if you're a victim, you need a villain. There's always a bad guy. And then there's always a hero who's got to come in and save the day. That's not you, right? And you hear this in people, I was late for that interview because the traffic was terrible. And, and it wasn't my fault. It was someone else's fault. I'm the victim. So if you can shift to being that creator mindset, where instead of a villain, now there's a challenge, and you say, listen, I'm not going to be susceptible. I'm responsible for this. What can I learn from this challenge? Everyone was put on this earth to help me learn something. And so how curious I am will determine whether or not I'm going to be, whether or not I'm going to be a victim, and whether or not I'm going to open myself up to thinking, okay, I can learn something about me. Maybe I'm going to take a different approach this one time. It feels scary. Like I feel my body tensing up, my heart beating faster, my palms getting sweaty. Then I know that's my fear signal. So there must be an opportunity in here somewhere.
Hey, Patrick, will you spend just a minute and address the founding of Odin Technologies? I'm assuming you had a lot of fears when you founded that company. Can you just allude to maybe one or two of those fears just for our viewers?
So, it was funny, Lenny, because I founded that with some technology out of MIT. And as soon as I did, one of our competitors trying to do the same thing went out and raised $30 million. And I thought, holy shit, man, I've got to go raise a ton of money. And the venture capitalists were saying, no, we already invested in RFID. We're not going to raise money. One of my board members said, do you have more customers than you can handle? And I said, well, no. And he said, well, what are you trying to raise money for? and I said, okay. And he kind of talked me off the ledge, but I was afraid we wouldn't have enough money. I was afraid, I had some really smart guys out of MIT and Cal Berkeley and a few other places. I was afraid they were going to go someplace, start their own. Motorola was getting into it. Zebra was getting into it. All these big competitors started. So I had so many fears, Lenny, it wasn't even funny. And, the truth of the matter is, as soon as I got the leukemia and got out of the hospital, it was right in the mid. It was kind of at the early stages of Odin. I had all the courage in the world because I realized I had a second chance at life. And I just started being the authentic me. And I started telling my employees, I said, look, I'm scared shitless that we're not going to get this contract. We might not make it. And at first, they were thinking, who is this guy? And then they said, well, you know what? We're scared too, but let's jump in and do this together. And it just changed the whole tenor of the organization. And, to your listeners who are thinking about starting their own company and getting out of the corporate parachute, I had a professor in business school Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great. And we were talking about, starting companies versus working for a big company. And he said, there's no good time to start a company and there's no bad time to start a company. And he said, I've got a deal for you. And I've made this offer a bunch of times when I've spoke to associations and organizations in the past. He said, pick a date 6 months from now or 7 months from now, get everything in order. So, you're going to start your business then. But right now, write a resignation letter to your boss, date it 6 months from now and sign it. And he said, write a second one, exact same thing, date it and sign it. And he said, you keep that first one. You give that second one to me because I'll mail it.
That's accountability right there.
That's it. Love it. So any one of your listeners who are thinking about, leaving a corporate job and starting their own, write that resignation letter today, date it 6 months from now, and send me a copy because I'll definitely send it.
Well, Patrick, on behalf of George and myself, I want to say thanks for popping in this morning. It was a breath of fresh air, and I can tell you, I'm leaving this conversation. I don't have nearly as many fears as I did going into this conversation. So thank you very much.
Hey, Patrick, Lenny, I have one more question. Your book now, and, I know that we're going to go over a little bit, but I just love this topic, love the book. You're out now talking with business professionals, CEOs and everything, helping them overcome their fear. What is the top one or two that current business owners and CEOs and board members are fearing right now?
I'd say the number one fear they have or number one fear I hear is trying to figure out a strategy around supply chain problems. So the thing that they're telling me a lot is we don't know if we're going to be able to deliver on contracts. There's a lot of fear around the uncertainty of supply chain. And I've seen some amazing results of people who became creative and used that as an opportunity. And I've seen some companies crumble because of it. So that's the number one thing. The second thing is probably blockchain and cryptocurrency. And I've been an investor and involved in this for a few years now. And they say, a lot of people say, I don't want to miss the boat. But I'm not sure, if we want to start investing or taking it or anything like that. And I told people we're at 1995 in the internet when it comes to the crypto world and that, in the Bitcoin world. And I said, if you look at literally the whole world, last month, there were 11 million individual transactions on Bitcoin, 10 million individual transactions on Ethereum, the two biggest cryptocurrencies. So a total of 21 million individual transactions in any 1 month. So that tells you, roughly 21 million people are using this new technology, this Web 3.0. That's less than 0.01% of the population. So that literally means nobody's using this technology yet. So don't be afraid of it. It's, a great time to jump in. The uncertainty of the supply chain in the marketplace is something that's as much an opportunity to change the way you do things as it is to, to end up hurting your company.
Well, hey, Patrick, again, like Lenny said, I really appreciate it. We could talk about this for probably another half hour, but the show is really only about 22 to 30 minutes. We're going to put you back in the studio and get your feedback as to what we could do to get better. But really appreciate you. And I definitely strongly suggest all the viewers going out and getting the book. It's also on Audible, and you can hear Patrick walk through the story of overcoming fear.
Thanks so much, George. Thanks, Lenny. You guys have a great morning.
You too, Pat. Thanks, buddy.
Wow, Lenny, I love that guy. I was always awed when I saw him the first time. He was up there, a commanding stage, through the whole growth of Odin Technologies. And I mean, at the end of the show, he had a line out the door because at that time he had another book, which was RFID for Dummies, which is a great book as well.
I just loved his example of sending 2 letters. I just think that was just what a brilliant thing. So anyways, hey, George, just to wrap a couple things up, we'll be back again on December 18th with our next episode. I will continue to be pinch hitting for Phil, assuming we can get my contract renegotiated in time, which I'm sure we can. But I think our topic for the next episode is financial health, if I'm correct, George. And
yeah, definitely timely.
Yeah, absolutely. And hope you all can tune in on the 18th at 8:02 a.m. I hope everybody has a great Saturday. George?
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Again, we had some technical difficulty. We weren't able to get on LinkedIn for some way. So what we'll do is we'll rebroadcast the show from YouTube Live on LinkedIn for all the viewers to see. Highly suggest everybody watching this show in its entirety. And reaching out to Patrick. I mean, if your business is struggling, you want to find a way to overcome fear. Patrick is just, a wealth of knowledge, and it's all backed by science and data, right? I mean, especially when you're running a business, you want to make business decisions based on the data because the data doesn't lie. So again, I want to thank Patrick. I want to thank our viewers. If you found this show to be valuable and help others, I highly suggest you making comments and sharing it with your folks in your network. And want to appreciate everybody for going through our technical difficulty. And I want to say we want to get better and achieve forward.
Bye for now.